Good afternoon to all the students. Can you hear my voice?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
in today's session, we are going to discuss the pointers concept. We'll see what these pointers are and what are the usages of these pointers and why we require these pointers. All these things we'll discuss, and we'll also discuss various types of pointers we have. After that, we'll see some programming part related to these pointers, and if time permits, we'll also discuss how we can what is the arithmetic operators, what are the arithmetic operations that we can perform on these pointers, that also we'll discuss. So that completes our syllabus part. So we'll start our concept with the pointers. Can anybody tell me what is a pointer?
A pointer is a variable that stores the address of another variable, sir.
So it is a variable which stores the address of another variable, right? So what do you mean by address? So the addressing the addressing part comes when you are dealing with the programs, right? So when you write the software programs, you want to work with some information or you want to work with some values. When you want to store those values, when you want to work with those values, you have to store them in the memory. So the storage of values or the storage of information will be done in the memory, right? And the memory locations that we use for the storage purpose consists of addresses. So if I want to access a particular memory location, I can access it by specifying the address of that memory location. So if I want to access a value that is stored in a particular memory location, so for example, I have a value called 20. I want to access this particular 20 or I want to use this information in my program. So I can't use this value 20 as it is. I have to store in some variable. So since 20 is an integer value, I declare an integer variable a and I assign the value of 20 like this. So these two statements allow the programmer to declare a variable of type integer and to assign or to initialize the value 20 to a. So as you know that the declaration part allocates the memory. So this is the declaration part. When the compiler comes across this statement, what it will do is it will allocate the memory. So how much memory that can be allocated will be specified by the data type of that variable. So integer variable size will be 4 bytes. So the entire 4 bytes, that means 32 bits of memory will be allocated, and assume that the base address is given like this. 100 is the base address of the 4 bytes, right? And we have given the name for this entire 100 byte 4 bytes of memory with a, right? And after this particular initialization statement will store the value of 20 inside this variable. This is how the statements are executed in the C programming language, right? So here we have given the base address of the memory location as 100. We are denoting it with a decimal number, but in general the actual format for which the memory addresses will be used is the hexadecimal notation. So all the memory addresses will be in the hexadecimal notation. But for our convenience, we are making use of the decimal notations to represent these addresses. Don't assume that the addresses in the original memory locations will be addressed by using the decimal notation. They make use of the hexadecimal notation. This is one important point, you should keep it in mind. So after this we have two things, right? For example, if I want to access this 20, I want to add 10 to this 20. So what I will do is I will take it the statement as a plus 10. So whatever value is there at the location A or location 100, that will be taken by making, or that is accessed by making use of A, and that will be converted like this. 10 plus 20 will be given, and let us assign this one. A is equal to 10 plus 20. So this is how we can access the value that is present inside a memory location. That means you can access the value by making use of the variable name. The other name for the variables is the identifiers. So the entire 4 bytes of memory can be identified by A. That is the reason why we call it as the identifier. Right. So there are two ways for accessing this 20, the value 20. One is by directly making use of the variable name A. So if I use the statement like printf, since I am going to print the integer value, it will be percentile d, the format specifier will be percentile d, and if I make a statement like this, it becomes very simple, right? So 20 will be printed. That means in order to access the value 20, I am making use of the variable name. That is one method by which you can access this value. The second method through which you can access the value inside a memory location is by making use of the addresses. By making use of the addresses, right? So why we are giving this variable name for this 4 bytes of memory means it is very difficult for the programmers to deal with these memory locations, to deal with these hexadecimal notations. So for that purpose, in order to make ourselves convenient with the programming, or in order to make ourselves to program the things in a easier fashion, we are giving an alias name to this hexadecimal notation. That is, we are giving an alias name for the memory location or hexadecimal notation with the identifiers. So this is the purpose of the identifier, or this is the purpose of a variable name, right? So the second method, coming back to our portion again, discussion, the second part by which you can access the value present inside this memory location is by using the addresses, right? So you cannot directly access the addresses, you cannot store the address. First of all, in order to make use of this address, you have to store it somewhere else. Am I right or not? Anything you want to make use of the value inside the program, you should store inside the memory. So whenever you are going to store, you have the concept of addresses. Whenever you are dealing with the addresses, you should always deal the addresses with the pointers only. So here, when I want to access the value 20 with the address, I should store this address somewhere else. So for that purpose, we have the concept of pointers. So as the definition says that pointers are the variables which stores the address of another variable. So in order to store this address, I have to declare a pointer variable, right? So the generalized syntax for declaring a pointer is, it starts with the keyword which specifies the data type, followed by space, followed by some indirection operator, and then the pointer name or the variable name. This is the generalized syntax: data type space star variable name. Right. So here the data type can be a fundamental data type, or it can be a user defined data type also. Anybody please tell me what are these fundamental data types?
Int.
Okay, integer, super. What about other one?
Character.
Okay,
Char.
int, char,
Float, double.
float and double, super, right. So these are the various data types that come under the category of the fundamental data types. Now tell me, what are the examples for user defined data types?
Arrays structures.
Arrays are not the user defined data types. They come under the category of derived data types, right? So what are the examples for user defined data types?
Unions, structures.
Okay, super. Structures and unions. And other than this, we also have enumerations also, enums. We call it as enums. So these are the three user defined data types that we come across in the C programming language. So this data type can be either an integer, or it can be a character, or float, or double, or similarly this data type can be a structure, union, or enum, right? I don't think that enums are used in this particular concept. And then it is followed by a star operator, and then you can give the variable name by following the rules for the identifiers in the C programming language, right? So a generalized example or a specific example to create an integer pointer means, since my intention is to create an integer pointer, I should use the data type int, and then I should leave a space, then followed by star, and then the variable name. That means the pointer name you can give anything, it is of the programmer's choice, but he should follow the rules for the identifiers. That is the thing he has to do, right? So int space, let me take it as IP, which represents the integer pointer. So now this is also a declaration statement. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this IP is a variable name of type integer pointer. This is a declaration statement. So memory will be allocated for this also, for this pointer also. Assume that the memory allocated is at the base address is around 200. What is the name I can give for this 4 bytes of location? Now tell me, what is the size of this pointer?
4 bytes.
4 bytes, right? So this is how we declare an integer pointer. Now what I should do is, after declaring the integer pointer, it is mandatory that you should initialize that pointer with some valid address, right? So I just want to store the address of the variable a. So there is an operator that supports the programmers in the C programming language to access the address of a variable. The operator is ampersand. The operator is represented by ampersand symbol. This is called the address of operator, and we call this in the same in C++ as reference operator. Both are same only, don't worry. So in order to access the address of a particular variable, we should use an operator called address of operator, which is denoted by the ampersand symbol. So the syntax of how we can access the address of a particular variable means, it is a very simple syntax where you have to precede this ampersand symbol before the variable name, right? So this represents the address of a. Now I have to assign the address of a. I know how to access the address of a. This is how I am going to access. Now I want to assign the address of this a to integer pointer. So I write like this: IP is equal to address of a. So what is address of a here? What is the address of a?
100, sir.
100. Right. So the IP is storing the address of another integer variable, that is a. When I store 100 inside this integer pointer, I can assume that this IP is pointing to this location, that is a. That means I am establishing a pointer from IP to a. That is the reason why we call these concepts as pointers. We have some variable pointing to the actual location. My actual location or my actual value is 20, which is stored inside the variable a, but I am not directly accessing the value by making use of the variable. There is a indirect method where I can access the value by making use of the pointers. Right. So this is all about the pointers. Introduction part. And is it clear up to this point?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So for example, if I want to declare a floating pointer, what is the syntax? Since I want to declare the floating pointer, I should use the data type as float followed by star and then the variable name fp. Right. So this is also a declaration part. So when you have the declaration part, the compiler will automatically allocate the memory, the sufficient memory for that particular variable or something else. Now tell me, what is the size of fp now?
4 bytes.
It is 4 bytes. Assume that it is 300. That means the floating pointer has been created at the base location 300. Now I want to declare the character pointer. So I should use the char as my keyword followed by star and let me call it as cp. Since it is a declaration, it also allocates memory. Now tell me how much memory is allocated for this declaration.
1 byte.
4 bytes.
So somebody may think that it is 1 byte, but remember that the memory occupied by any pointer is common. Whether it may be an integer pointer or floating pointer or character pointer or double pointer, any pointer you take, it is going to take the common size. So the common size is specified by the fundamental basic data type. So the fundamental basic data type we have here is integer. That means if we want to go deeper into this discussion, right? So the minimum size that is occupied by a particular variable is given by the architecture of the computer, right? So it is how it is defined. So forget about all those things. You just remember that all the pointers, irrespective of the address it is going to store, whether it can be an integer pointer, floating pointer or character pointer or double pointer, every pointer is going to take the same size, which is equal to 4 bytes in this case, right? So the character pointer also takes 4 bytes and it is named as cp. Assume that it is 400. It is created at 400. Now if I want to declare a double pointer, I make use of double as my keyword and then let me take it as dp. So now tell me, what is the size of this dp?
Four bytes.
It is again 4 bytes. Why? Because as I told that irrespective of the type of pointer, every pointer occupies the same memory. The reason for this is any pointer you take, integer pointer, floating pointer, character pointer or double pointer, any pointer you take, it is going to store the address. It is going to store the address. So the size of the address or the size of the pointer is fixed. Why? Because we are going to store the address. It is not that the address of integer takes 4 bytes and the address of character takes 1 byte. The memory that is allocated for that variable varies. For example, if you take a character variable, it will take 1 byte, float 4 bytes, integer 4 bytes, double 8 bytes, like that. It may vary, the size of the variable may vary, but the size of address remains constant. It is a hexadecimal notations and it is constant. Since you are storing the address part inside the pointers, the size of all the pointers will remain constant. This is the reason why all the pointers will have the same size. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now you may get a question, sir, if every pointer is taking the equal size, what is the need of having this integer pointer? What is the need of having this floating pointer? Why do we require these 4 types of pointers? The categories of these pointers, the solution is the categories of these pointers is based on the value, the address of the variable which you are storing, right? So if I take an integer pointer, this point is very important, please remember. So if I take an integer pointer, the integer pointer is going to store the address of another integer variable, and if I am going to take the floating pointer, it is going to store the address of another floating point variable. Character pointer, it is going to store the address of another character variable. Double pointer, it is going to store the address of another double variable. So this is how these types of pointers have been categorized. It depends, or the categories depends on the addresses of different variables which you are going to store, right? So if I store the integer variable address inside the floating pointer, you may get an error or you may get a warning. It depends on compiler, right? So it is not suggestible to store the addresses of different data types in the different pointers. That means you are always suggested to store the address of the corresponding data type, address of a corresponding variable inside its corresponding pointer only. That means you have to store the address of integer variable inside an integer pointer, store the address of floating pointer variable inside the floating pointer. Like that, you have to map those things. The pointer data type should map with the address, the data type of the variable which you are going to store. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So other than these 4 pointers, we have another pointer called as generic pointer. What do you mean by the term generic? Anybody? What do you mean by the term generic? Do you know the answer or shall I proceed?
No, sir.
Right. Generic means general, right? So other than these fundamental data types, integer, float, char and double, we have another data type which is called as void, right? Which is called as void. So the other name for this generic pointer is void pointer. We can call it as a void pointer. Now tell me, how do I declare this void pointer? I will tell you what is the use of this generic pointer, but tell me, how do you declare this void pointer?
Void star.
It should start with the data type, and I told that void is another data type. So void star, let us take it as VP, void pointer. So this VP is a pointer variable. This VP is a variable of type void pointer. So what do you mean by this void pointer? Means it does not impose any restrictions in the address part it is going to store. For example, if you take the integer pointer, it is putting some restriction, or it is giving some rules. It is imposing some restrictions saying that the integer pointer can store the address of another integer variable only. Similarly, floating pointer can store the address of another floating point variable only. Like this, we have some restrictions on these type of integer pointers and float, char and double pointers, but these type of restrictions are not there for the generic pointer. That means it is capable of storing the address of any variable you take. So you can store the address of integer variable inside the generic pointer, or you can store the address of floating point variable inside the generic pointer, or you can store the character variable address, or you can store the double variable address inside the generic pointer. That is the reason why we call it as a generic pointer. Generic means general, so it accepts anything, any address or any variable address can be stored inside the generic pointer. That is the reason why it is called as generic pointer. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And other than this, we have another pointer called as null pointer. Null pointer. So let us see what this null pointer is. When we are discussing the concept of pointers, one point you should keep it in mind, and it is a very important concept or important point you should remember forever, is when you declare a pointer, it is mandatory that you should always initialize it with the valid address. What is that statement? When you create a pointer, you should always initialize that pointer variable with a valid address. That means if I create an integer pointer, immediately you should initialize that integer pointer with the address of another integer variable. Similarly, if you create a floating pointer, you should immediately store the address of another floating point variable. Like that, the case is similar to that of character pointer and double pointer. But sometimes the programmer does not find any valid address to be initialized to the pointer that is declared. In such case, that means when the programmer does not have a valid address to store inside the pointers, what the user can do is, or what the programmer can do is, he can initialize such type of pointers to a special value called, or to a special address called as null address. Null address. So if a pointer stores the null address into it, such type of pointers we call them as null pointers. Is it clear? Right. For example, let me take one example. Let me create an integer pointer int star p. Right. This is the declaration part. But as I told that immediately after declaration part, you have to give some value, valid address should be stored inside these pointers. But if you have no valid address to be stored inside this pointer, what you will do is you will simply assign it to a special address value which is called as null address. Right. Now what is the p called as? Of course it is an integer pointer, but since you are storing the null value inside this pointer variable, or you are storing the address, null address inside this pointer, this p will be called as null pointer. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we have seen what a pointer is. We have seen the syntax for declaring a pointer. We have explained it with an example how this variable is created and what value is stored and how we can manipulate those values. And we have seen different types of pointers, that is the integer pointer, float pointer, character pointer, double pointer. And we have already seen this generic pointer, which is otherwise called as void pointer, and it is capable of storing the address of any variable, no restrictions. And similarly we have seen the null pointer, where it is a pointer which stores a special value called the null address, right? And we have seen the operator which is used to access the address of a particular variable, that is called as address of operator or reference operator, and it is denoted by the ampersand symbol. And the syntax is, we will write this ampersand symbol before the variable, and that is called as reference of that variable A, or else we can also call it as address of this variable A, right? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Now tell me, what are the uses of these pointers? You might have come across the usage of these pointers in your programming concepts. Do have a recap of some of the concepts where you will be using these pointers. Any one, any two applications, you please tell me.
Implementation of linked lists and trees.
Okay, implementation of linked lists, it is okay, but can I call it as implementation of data structures?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here is one application we have. Can anybody tell me what is the other application? Just think of where you have used. What do you mean by dynamic memory allocation?
స్టాక్స్ క్యూస్ లో కూడా యూజ్ చేస్తాం.
Yeah, in stacks and queues, you can implement the stacks and queues using two ways. One is by making use of arrays, which is a static memory allocation, and the other one is by making use of linked lists, where we will use the dynamic memory allocation concept, right? So stacks using linked lists, implementation of stacks using linked lists will make use of this pointers concept. But why we are making use of that concept means, why? Because linked lists are always implemented with the dynamic memory allocation concept, where we will be using the dynamic memory allocations functions such as malloc and calloc, right? So when you make use of this malloc and calloc while discussing the singly linked list programs which we have discussed in the earlier classes, what is the use of this malloc and calloc? What is the use of malloc and calloc? Anybody please respond.
డైనమిక్ గా మెమరీ అలొకేట్ చేయడానికి.
Okay, it is used to allocate the memory dynamically. Super, right? So the malloc function allocates the required size of memory, and it also returns the base address of the memory that is allocated. Am I right or not? So once the required size of memory is allocated, that required size of memory will be having a starting address, which we are calling it with the name called as base address, and the malloc returns that base address. This is another functionality of malloc and calloc. So once you are returning a base address, what is the variable that is capable of storing the address? So you have an integer value. If I throw an integer value, what is the variable it can catch hold of that integer value?
క్వశ్చన్ కొంత అర్థం కాదు సార్. ఆ క్వశ్చన్ అర్థం కాదు.
The question is, when I am throwing an integer value, or else you think of like that, when I am returning an integer value, that value should be caught inside a particular variable, right? So which variable is capable of storing the integer values? Integer variable. Similarly, if I throw a floating point value, which variable is capable of storing the floating point value? Floating point variable, right? Similarly, when I throw an address, which variable is capable of storing the address?
Pointers.
Pointers, right? So the malloc and calloc has the capacity of throwing the base address after successful allocation of the memory. So when malloc is throwing an address, you should have a pointer to catch hold of that particular address, right? So you can observe here that the pointers concept is a mandatory concept when you are allocating the memory dynamically. So malloc and calloc, definitely they will throw an address, they will throw the base address after successful allocation of memory. So in order to store or to catch that address, you should have the concept of pointers. So without pointers, no dynamic memory allocation concept. So the both pointers and dynamic memory allocation are strongly linked to each other, that without pointers no dynamic memory allocation concepts can be implemented, right? Do you understand the concept now?
Yes, sir.
So in dynamic
Yes,
memory
sir.
allocation, we will make use of the concept called pointers. Another part where we will make use of the concept of pointers is files. Do you have any idea on these files? Programming part?
The files, we use a file pointer for opening it and also
Super,
performing.
So when you are dealing with the files in the C programming language, the first and foremost step you have to do is you have to create a file pointer. That is done by making the syntax like this: file star fp. So this file pointer is the base for any file operation. So you observe the file operations you have in the C programming language. Every file operation, every file function is having one of the parameter as the file pointer. So the first and foremost step you have to do in the file operations is you have to create a file pointer and make that file pointer to point to the file which you are accessing or which you are targeting. So in files we will make use of the pointers concept. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So in other thing, మీకు బాగా తెలుసు, you know very well that what are the various ways of parameter passing?
Call by value and call by reference.
Super, right. It is call by value and call by reference. What do you mean by call by reference or call by address? Actually we should say it as pass by address. So when you are passing, pass by address is nothing but one function is going to pass the address to the call function, right? So when you are passing the address, the variable that should be used to catch hold of that address is the pointer. So here is another application where we make use of the pointers in the concept of pass by address. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
Now another
Yes,
question.
sir.
Another question. How many values can a function return?
In a single instance, sir.
Yeah, when I call a function, tell me how many values can a function return?
Single value, sir.
Only one value. Super, right? So a function by definition it can return only one value. But is there any way to make the function return more than one value?
Yes, sir.
What is that way?
Point type.
It is by pass by address only. So when you pass the parameters by address, so you can virtually make a function return more than one value, right? So whenever you want to return more than one value from a function, you should make use of the concept called as pass by address, and the pass by address is entirely based on the pointers concept. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So another application is when you want to make a function returning more than one value. Any other applications? Any other applications? Okay, let us stop these applications. Now tell me the uses or the benefits of these pointers. I say that it reduces the complexity of the program. The pointers reduces the complexity of the program. Is my statement true? Or the programming complexity increases by using the pointers concept? Which one is true?
First one, sir.
That means you are going to reduce the complexity.
Yes, sir.
Right. Right. Can you justify this statement? Right. I will tell you. Right. You have the single dimensional 1D arrays, right? 1D arrays, 2D arrays, and multi-D arrays. Multi-D means
Two-dimensional.
multi-dimensional arrays, right? So when you are programming this one dimensional arrays, it will be very easy to program using indexes. What is an index? What is an index of an array?
Size, sir. Size of an array. Size of an
It's not the size, which a number which is specific. Right. For
Yeah,
example, if I specify the array as a of 3, the array index always starts with 0 and ends with n minus 1. So 0, 1, 2 are the indices. Right. Like that, if n is the size of the array, then the index range varies from 0 to n minus 1. This we all know, right? So whenever I want to access the elements of the array, you are accessing them by making use of the indexing concept. Am I right or not? So if I want to access the second element, what is that I will do? I will write it as a of 1, where a is the array name and 1 is the index number. If I want to access the 25th element, how can I access? It is a of 24.
20.
Right. Like that, if you want to access the individual elements in the one dimensional array, you can easily access them by making use of the indexing concept. But when the dimension of the arrays keeps on increasing, up to 2D arrays also, you might have done programs related to matrices. How many dimensional matrix you will take? What are the dimensions of a matrix?
2 by 2 or 3, n by n.
N by n, right? So to represent an n by n matrix, you make use of the 2D arrays. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
So when you are accessing the matrices or when you are programming the matrix concept, you will make use of the two-dimensional arrays, and accessing the elements of the two-dimensional arrays using indices is also somewhat easier. Why? Because you might have written the programs related to addition of matrices, multiplication of matrices by using two for loops. For I is equal to 0, I less than rows, I plus plus. For again you will take an inner loop for C is equal to 0, C less than columns, C plus plus. Like that you will make use of two for loops. One for loop is related to rows and one for loop is related to columns. And those I and C represents the rows and columns respectively. That means nothing but the indices. So you can access the indices of a two-dimensional array in a easier fashion. But remember that when the dimensions of the arrays is increasing, that means you take 2D array or 3D array, not 2D. You take 3D array, you take 4D array, you take 5D array. It is almost impossible to think the logic of these multidimensional arrays using the indices concept. In such case, you can make use of pointers concept to reduce the complexity of the program, right? You can easily think of the logic for these multidimensional arrays using the pointers concept. That is the reason why we can say that the pointers concept reduces the complexity of the program when you are writing the programs that are complex in nature. That means when you are dealing with multidimensional arrays. This is an example I have given, right? So other thing, another example that we can give for the reduction in the complexity means, for example, if you are working for an organization which produces the software or which develops the software related to system programming, right? There are two types of softwares. One is the system program, and what is that one? The user defined applications, right? So we have a lot of companies that work on this development of these user defined applications, but there are very few software companies, or maximum you take the hardware companies, right? For example, if you are working on an embedded system, or if you are working for a organization that works on the embedded systems, you have to write the programs for the system, or you have to write the system level programming, which is otherwise called as low level programming. So when you are dealing with the low level programming, sometimes you require to access the addresses of the locations directly, right? So when you want to access the addresses directly, there is no other concept other than this pointers to have the access to the address of a particular memory location. Is it clear? So in simple term, or in a simple statement, we can say that when the programmer is dealing with the system level programming or the low level programming, sometimes the programmer needs to access the addresses of the memory locations. So accessing the address of the memory locations can be easily done by making use of the pointers. Of course, there is no other concept that deals with the address part. It is the only concept which deals with the addresses of the memory location, that is the pointers, right? So in order to access those memory locations or memory addresses directly, we can make use of these pointers, and it reduces the complexity, right? This is how it is reducing, the pointers are reducing the complexity of the programs. And the second one is it saves space. This is another statement I am giving. Can you justify this statement? How can a pointer save space? But as per my knowledge, when I make use of the pointers, it is taking more space. For example, if I want to access this 20, I can have this variable and I can directly access this A, and I can get this value 20. But if I want to access the value 20 using the pointers, I need to create a pointer which occupies another 4 bytes of memory, and this is taking the extra space. So the pointers takes the extra space, but I am contradicting myself. Just now I am saying that pointers takes extra space, but I am saying that the pointers can be used to save the space or to save the memory space. How you are going to justify means, while you are discussing the concept of dynamic memory allocation, what actually is dynamic memory allocation? Please tell me. Anybody please respond.
Allocating memory at
Allocation of
runtime.
memory at the time of runtime, sir.
Super. So allocating memory at runtime is called as dynamic memory allocation. Do I have a provision to increase the memory that is allocated already? So do I have any
At the time of runtime, sir.
Yeah.
In the dynamic, there
so
is
during
a
dynamic
chance
memory
of-
allocation, do I have a provision to increase the size that is already allocated? Yes or no?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
The answer is yes. So in static memory allocation, it is not possible to change the size. Why? Because static memory allocation means you need to specify the size well in advance. For example, in the classroom also I have given an example, right? Your class is having a strength of 31 candidates, but keeping an assumption that some people may join in the second year, let us assume that 5 people will join in the second year. I am just making the array, I am making the size of the array as 40, but assume that only 31 members are continuing, no candidate has joined the course in the second year. So the remaining 9 memory locations, 9 into 4, that is 36 bytes of memory will be wasted. That is the problem with the static memory allocation, where the programmer has to have an idea well in advance of how much memory is to be required. Why this is the reason is there is no provision in the static memory allocation to increase the size of the memory once you have declared it, right? But what happens in the dynamic memory allocation means you can allocate at the runtime, and you can allocate only the memory that is required at that particular point of time. For example, at this particular moment I require only 20 locations. Yes, you can allocate, you can ask the compiler by using malloc to allocate. It's not the compiler. Why? Because you are allocating the memory at runtime. So you can ask the malloc function to allocate 20 locations, but sometime after I require 40 locations. So you can allocate 40 locations by asking the malloc function. So like this you are going to make use of the memory very efficiently in terms of dynamic memory allocation, right? You have a provision, or you have the capability to make as much memory as you want. Not that you just estimate that 100 people are going to join in my class, so I will declare the size of the array as 100, but only 20 people has joined, so the remaining 80 into 4, that is 160 bytes of memory is wasted. So there is a wastage of memory in the static memory allocation, but in the dynamic memory allocation there is no wastage of memory. Why? Because you are going to allocate the same memory, or you are going to allocate the required amount of memory at that particular point of time. This is how the pointers help us in saving the space. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in the second part we have seen the uses of the data structures, where we can use it's not data structure, pointers, where we have we can use these pointers for implementation of various data structures like stacks, queues, trees, graphs, anything you can implement using these pointers. And pointers are very strongly related with the dynamic memory allocation. Without pointers, no dynamic memory allocation. The reason is the malloc function and calloc function that we are going to use for allocating the memory will return an address, and that address should be stored inside a pointer. So pointers and dynamic memory allocation are strongly related to each other. Similarly, when you are dealing with the files, you will be creating the file pointer as the first step of dealing with the files, right? So this is the place where you can make use of the pointers. Similarly, in the call by address or pass by address, one of the parameter passing mechanisms, you will make use of the pointers. And whenever you want to make your function return more than one value virtually, this is not actually the function is returning two values, it will virtually return, will assume or will get an illusion that the function is returning more than one value. This is possible only with the pass by addresses. So pass by addresses will make use of the concept of pointers. So these are the various applications or usages of these pointers, and the benefits of these pointers we have discussed only 2 points, that is it reduces the complexity. That means the first case is when you are dealing with the programming part related to the multi-dimensional arrays. You declare the multi-dimensional arrays using pointers and you program it, you will get a very clean and neat program without any errors, right? And the other one is when you are dealing with programming related to the low level programming, you have to access the addresses of the memory locations directly. In such cases you require the pointers, and it saves space, or it saves memory space. The pointer saves memory space. The reason is when you are making use of the static memory allocation, the memory may be wasted. Why? Because the user will be allocating few locations or few memory space which may not be used during the program execution. But in dynamic memory allocation, the user has the provision that he can use or he can make use of as much memory as he wants at that particular point of time. So this dynamic memory allocation makes use of this pointers concept, and hence we can say that the pointers saves memory space. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is end of today's session, and we have gone through all the introduction part related to pointers, starting from what pointers are, how we can declare a pointer, why we require the pointers, types of pointers, generic pointer, null pointer, uses of pointers, and the last one is benefits of pointers. All these things we have discussed, right? So this is end of today's session, and in next session we are going to deal with the other parts of the pointers. We'll go through the slides in the next class, and then we'll see what parts we have missed, and if there are any additional points we can take it up. We'll just take it off, and then we'll move to the arithmetic, pointer arithmetic, right? What are the valid arithmetic operations that we can perform on these pointers, that we will deal, right? So this is end of today's session. Thank you one and all. You can leave.
సార్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ సెషన్ ఉంటుంది కదా సార్, తీసుకుంటారు కదా?
Yeah, I will take the afternoon session 3 to 4.
ఓకే సార్, ఓకే సార్.